When somebody's the president of the United States, the authority is total. I'm not a doctor, as you possibly have found out. I'm not a doctor, but I'm a person with common sense. I'm not a doctor, but I have common sense. There are promising therapies, and that would be REMS. It's called remdesivir. Remdesivir. I don't want to get anybody overly excited, but I'm very excited by that. So you have remdesivir, and you have chloroquine, and some people would add to it hydroxychloroquine.
That's a drug that the president has directed us to take a closer look at. We want to do that in the setting of a clinical trial, a large, pragmatic clinical trial.
And I say, try it. Take it. I really think they should take it. In fact, I might do it anyway. I may take it. I've seen things that I sort of like, so what do I know? I'm not a doctor. I'm not acting as a doctor. I'm saying, do what you want. Hydroxychloroquine and the Z-Pak, I think, is a combination, probably is looking very, very good.
I'm not totally sure what the president was referring to. If you really want to definitively know if something works, that you've got to do the kind of trial that you get the good information.
Why should we be testing it in a test tube for a year and a half when we have thousands of people that are very sick? The vaccine does have to be tested for a long period of time because you can't give, thousands, millions of people a vaccine and it turns out to be dangerous. It's tested in the sense that it doesn't kill you.
What we don't know is when you put it in the context of another disease, whether it's safe. Fundamentally, I think it probably is going to be safe, but I like to prove things first.
I'm not a doctor. I'm just saying we hear great results. I really think it's a great thing to try, just based on what I know. Again, I'm not a doctor. And zinc, they say zinc. You should add zinc. So you add the zinc.
Dr. Fauci said there is no magic drug for coronavirus right now, which you would agree.
I disagree. Maybe and maybe not. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I feel good about it. That's all it is, just a feeling. I'm a smart guy. I feel good about it. I like this stuff. I really get it. People are surprised that I understand it. When somebody is very sick, they go to a doctor, go to a hospital, they record it, they're very sick, and then they live or they don't live. The people that are sick are going to a doctor or they're going someplace and they're going to say, make me better. Every one of these doctors said, how do you know so much about this? When you look at these hospitals, the amount that they order, you almost say, how could they possibly use so much, whether it's masks or the protective gear? Why aren't they able to use that mask a second, third, fourth time? If you take a solid flu vaccine, you don't think that would have an impact or much of an impact on corona?
No. Probably not.
There's a study out there that says people that have lupus haven't been catching this virus. No, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. Young people seem to be, you can't say immune to it, but they're certainly, the numbers are very small. We're ordering a lot of supplies. We're ordering a lot of different elements of medical. I think they're going to start the process of giving the drug through mouth. We're going to continue. It's going to disappear. One day it's like a miracle. It will disappear. And from our shores, it could get worse before it gets better. It could maybe go away. We'll see what happens. Nobody really knows. But don't forget the doctors. If it were up to the doctors, they may say, let's keep it shut down. I saved tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of lives by
time that you bought. The argument is that you bought yourself some time and you didn't use it to prepare hospitals. You didn't use it to ramp up testing. Right now, nearly 20 million people
disgraceful.
are unemployed.
It's so disgraceful the way you said it. Let me just listen. I just went over it.
Or this rant supposed to make people
I just went over it
in an unprecedented crisis.
Nobody thought we should do it, and when I did it.
But what did you do with the time that you bought?
You know
the
what we
month
did?
of February. That
we
video
did?
was a gap.
What do you do?
Month of February.
What do you do when you have no case in the whole United States?
You had cases
when
in February.
Excuse me, you reported it. 0 cases, 0 deaths on January 17th.
January, February, the entire
January.
month of
I said in
February. Your video
January.
has a complete gap.
On
Month of
January
February.
30th.
What did your administration do in February with the time that your travel ban bought
A
you?
lot.
What?
A lot. And in fact, we'll give you a list. What we did, in fact, part of it was up there. We did a lot.
The video had a gap.
Look. You know you're a fake. You know that. your whole network, the way you cover it, is fake. And most of you, and not all of you, but the people are wise to you. That's why you have a lower approval rating than you've ever had before, times probably 3. And when you ask me that question, let me ask you this: Why did Biden apologize? Why did he write a letter of apology? No, that's very important. Why did the Democrats think that I acted too quickly? You know why? Because they really thought that I acted too quickly. We have done a great job. Now, I could have kept it open, and I could have done what some countries are doing. They're getting beat up pretty badly. I could have kept it open. I thought of keeping it open because nobody's ever heard of closing down a country, let alone the United States of America. But if I would have done that, we would have had hundreds of thousands of people that would right now be dead. We've done this right, and we really have done this right. The problem is the press doesn't cover it the way it should be.
We don't have King Trump, we have President Trump.
Just to clarify your understanding of your authority vis-a-vis governors. If a governor issued a stay-at-home order...
When you say my authority, the president's authority, not mine, because it's not me. This is when somebody's the president of the United States, the authority is total. And that's the way it's got to be.
Your authority is total.
It's total. It's total.
Your
And the
authority is
governors
total.
know that.
So if a
The governors know
if a
that. Now
governor
you have a
issued
couple of bands
stay-at-home order,
excuse me. You have a couple.
Could you rescind that order?
You have a couple of bands of Democrat governors, but they will agree to it. They will agree to it. But the authority of the President of the United States having to do with the subject we're talking about is total.
Has any governor agreed that you have the authority to decide when their state
I haven't
opens
asked
back up?
anybody because
But
I
no
don't.
one has
You know why?
no one
Because
has
I don't have to. Go ahead, please.
But who told you the president has the total authority?
Enough.
In the long history of this country, the authority of the President of the United States during national emergencies is unquestionably plenary.
We had this argument. It was done a long time ago. People by the name of Hamilton and Jefferson and Madison and Washington, and they concluded this. They wrote a document that's called the Constitution of the United States, and it is an explicit and intricate balance of power between the federal government and the state governments. And it says the federal government does not have absolute power. It says the exact opposite that the president said. It says that would be a king. We would have had King George Washington, and we didn't have King George Washington, and we don't have King Trump. We have President Trump.
I don't need the White House saying, hey, everybody, it's all going to be fine. Go to church on a Sunday and keep going. The governors are trying to speak with a unified voice and say, this is the time to make sure the social distancing stays disciplined. This is no time to take our eye off the ball. That would be dangerous.
President Trump is absolutely positively wrong. It is constitutional black letter law that the president does not decide, for example, when this country reopens. It's the governors. He simply doesn't have the ability to dictate those terms.
Dr. Fauci said earlier this week that the lag in testing was in fact a failing. Do you take responsibility for that? And when can you guarantee that every single American who needs a test will be able to have a test? What's the date of that?
Yeah, no, I don't take responsibility at all.
If he ordered me to reopen in a way that would endanger the public health of the people of my state, I wouldn't do it. And we would have a constitutional challenge between the state and the federal government, and that would go into the courts, and that would be the worst possible thing he could do at this moment would be to act dictatorial and to act in a partisan, divisive way. Keep the politics out of it.
The authority is total. Instead of asking a nasty, snarky question like that, you should ask a real question.
Mr. President, did you or your family sell stocks?
No, I don't have stock. I own things that...
Did you make any alternates to investments in advance of this?
No, I didn't even think about it. You know, it's very interesting that you ask a question like that. You know, nasty question, and yet it deserves to be asked, I guess.
Yesterday, Jared Kushner said the notion of the federal stockpile was it's supposed to be our stockpile. It's not supposed to be state stockpiles that they then use. What did he mean by our?
Oh, what are you asking?
And
I mean,
even the fact that taxpayers from
what's that?
every
It got
state
you.
pays
I got
for
you.
it.
You
No,
used
it's
the
not
word
a
hour.
gotcha.
It's such a basic, simple question, and you try and make it sound so bad. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You know what? You ought to be ashamed. It's such a simple question. You just ask your question in a very nasty tone.
What do you say to Americans who are upset with you over the way you downplayed this crisis over the last couple of months? We have it very much under control in this country. The coronavirus is very much under control in the USA. It's going to disappear. It's like a miracle. It will disappear. March 4th, we have a very small number of people in this country infected. March 10th, we're prepared. We're doing a great job with it. It will go away. Just stay calm. It will go away. What do you say to Americans who believe that you got this wrong?
And I do want them to stay calm. And it's people like you and CNN that say things like that, it's why people just don't want to listen to CNN anymore. You could ask a normal question.
Could you also weigh in on this issue of hydroxychloroquine? What do you think about this, and what is the medical evidence?
That question?
Yeah.
Maybe 15 times. You don't have to ask.
He's your medical expert, correct?
He's answered that question 15 times.
Is it possible that your impulse to put a positive spin on things may be giving Americans a false sense of hope?
No, I don't think so.
Misrepresenting the preparedness right now.
No, I don't think so. I think that I think it's got
the not yet approved drug.
Such a lovely question.
What do you say to Americans who are watching you right now who are scared?
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say. I think it's a very nasty question, and I think it's a very bad signal that you're putting out to the American people. You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
My first question is, you said that you don't take responsibility, but you did disband the White House Pandemic Office, and the officials that were working in that office left this administration abruptly. So what responsibility do you take to that? And the officials that worked in that office said that the White House lost valuable time because that office wasn't disbanded. What do you make of that?
Well, I just think it's a nasty question.
Ventilator manufacturers are doubling, tripling, even quadrupling their production in some cases.
That's true.
And yet medical experts and some of these manufacturers are predicting that there will still be shortages of tens of thousands of ventilators. Is it time for you to level with the American public that there likely will be shortages of ventilators in some cases?
We think that we have a good amount ready to move. I mean, literally, like an army. They're ready to move to any hotspot. But some of the ones that you're talking about, always a nasty question from CNN, but some of the ones, because I think that, frankly, because you know what, you've asked that question about 10 times over the course of about a month. Thousands of lives by
time that you bought, the argument is that you bought yourself some time. You didn't use it to prepare hospitals. You didn't use it to ramp up testing. Right now, nearly 20 million
you're so
people
disgraceful.
are unemployed.
It's so disgraceful the way you said it. Let me just listen. I just went over it.
To make people
I just went over
in
it.
an unprecedented crisis.
Nobody thought we should do it. You know you're a fake. You know that. Your whole network, the way you cover it, is fake.
We will not see diseases like the coronavirus come here. We will not see terrorism come here. And isn't that refreshing when contrasting it with the awful presidency of President Obama? This is a president that constantly has things made up about him. The president is lied about constantly. This is why Harvard, by the way, says 90% of the news coverage of the president is negative. Not my words, Harvard's
that's
words.
not what Harvard said. Harvard said 90% of the coverage is negative. They didn't say why. The why is his mouth and his actions.
to trust or believe what is said here or what is said by the president.
There's no denying that CNN, that the Washington Post, that the New York Times have all displayed malicious intent. They knowingly published false information.
This is no one's fault but the deranged maniac that is sending those pipe bombs.
But CNN is culpable. Let me just add this.
CNN is culpable? You want to be on the record saying that a pipe bomb showed up in CNN?
No, not culpable for the pipe bomb, culpable for the rhetoric that we are seeing back and forth. I don't think he was condoning sexual assault. He said he starts to kiss a woman and then they let him do X, Y, or Z. That implies consent, first of all. I don't think he was advocating sexual assault.
How does that imply consent?
You might think he's gone around assaulting women. I don't think that's the case. You had President Obama, who after I believe it was the beheading of Daniel Pearl, spoke to how upset he was about that, then rushed off to a golf game. President Trump rescinded the Obama guidelines on transgender, and let's be very clear why he did that. President Obama acted lawlessly. I think in this case, this accusation is far more accurate than Donald Trump being an ISIS propaganda.
ISIS.
The media's best hope is for Donald Trump to suspend his rallies. They've been wanting him to stop this. They know it's his avenue to speak directly to the American people. So we're going to follow the president's lead. We're not going to cave to the media. The president is the best authority on this issue.
Kayleigh, I don't know you. Seriously, do you have any integrity at all? I am keeping it professional. She's the one lying.